So I did this portrait here from a photo that I had put into Photoshop and put a filter on it to emphasize the idea of painting shapes. All right, welcome to Paint Coach. If you're new to the channel, my name is Chris Fornatero, and I help thousands of students every single month get better at oil painting through my online courses and tutorials that simplify the painting process. And this is one of my favorite exercises to do. So let me show you exactly how I do this. So I have a photo here in Photoshop of Humphrey Bogart in black and white, which is important. It's helpful for it to be in black and white because I really wanted to focus just on value shapes. A lot of times with exercises, it's good to try and eliminate other aspects of painting. Like this one, I'm eliminating color to really focus on value shapes. But I get a lot of people asking me how I do this, and so this is how I do it. I put the photo in Photoshop, I go to Filter, I go to Filter Gallery, and here are all the filters. Let me get this so you can see it. That's actually the cutout filter, which I've used before in other painting videos. Just helps break it down into different levels, and you can control the number of levels to however many you want. I actually do that in my foundations course. But here I use the palette knife, and the stroke size here is really, really big. So let's just bring it down, bring it down, bring it down, maybe a little more. It's something, maybe something like that. All right, so here we go. And just some things I want to point out too, if you squint your eyes or if you stand back from your screen, like everything is reading, which shows you like this is what really makes up a portrait. And I feel like a lot of people get so dialed into like drawing out a nose exactly, or they feel like they need to like draw out the eyes and the eyelashes and everything, when really you just need to put the right shapes next to each other, the right size and the right value. I mean, it's so cool that this eyebrow shape is connected into the shape that goes down into the eye. And as long as you get these shapes right, and you don't have to paint every single shape that you see, like I know you see a whole lot of little shapes. I'll show in a minute like the progression of the painting, but like look at the mouth here. Look at how this top lip shape kind of goes right down into that bottom lip shape. And it's also just cool to see the clear value distinctions. Like I always talk about the three planes above the mouth, kind of like the muzzle of the mouth. And you can see those very clear right here with just three distinct values. Or even just how right here gets darker on this side of the face because this side is curving back away from us. Again, this eye here, just this big shape, but with the right amount of little light right there. You could also just see like the lightest part, and as it gets darker, as it gets further out and kind of that spherical form, or this plane change on the side of the face where it's getting that light. It's obviously some kind of light coming from the right. But let me pull up the progression photos of this painting and kind of show you how I went about doing this. All right, so here's the progression of the painting. Now, I actually did this painting as a Patreon tutorial. And I always say, if you don't know where to start with learning to paint, my Patreon page is a great place to start. If you're looking to add structure and purpose to your learning and be a part of a painting community, my Patreon offers that. There's hundreds of tutorials, tons of portrait tutorials. There's actually the Perfect Portraits painting path, where I've hand-selected certain portrait tutorials to go through in a certain order to progressively push yourself in learning portrait painting. I also have the Paint Coach video answer key, which is actually a collection of the most common questions I get about oil painting. And I link the YouTube video in which I answer that question. And there's also the private Facebook group that has close to 1,000 members now, where you can post your work. If you're going through one of my courses, you can post the work you do from the course. So if you want to check that out, there's a link to it in the description of this video. All right, so starting out here, I actually just use the Loomis head method. You can kind of see the circle here, and then, getting a line for the eyebrows, cutting off the side plane. Got that center line for the middle of the face, and then just marked out where the nose was, where the mouth was, and just kind of get a general sense and structure of the face. And then here, I didn't go in and just start painting, a bunch of small shapes. I just blocked out everything into light and shadow in very simple shapes and just getting that overall form. I mean, look at the mouth here. I wasn't afraid to just paint right over it and just think of this as one solid mass that goes from light to dark. That's really going to help you understand the form and the structure of the face. And I always say, start big and then work small. And then here, I just start adding in more shapes. And this is really what this exercise is about, is just getting comfortable laying in shapes and then also adjusting those shapes, pushing those shapes, adding on top of those shapes. I mean, just look at the forehead here. I have a lot more shapes here than I did here. Here it's just, this one gray shape, but I've come in and I've added like a transition there, and then it gets a little bit lighter here and then really lighter here. But I didn't just leave it like that. You can see by the time I get here, I added even more shapes and I got more specific with these shapes, and then added even more transition as I go into the shadow here. So don't think that you have to like put in the small shapes right away. It's actually better to start big. And right here, you got a big shape there, but by here it got broken down. You just really need to get comfortable, especially with oil paints, manipulating the paint once it's on the canvas and really thinking about it as if it's clay and you're pushing and pulling and carving and sculpting. This exercise is also really helpful to get you to see shapes that are connected. A lot of times we get so caught up in trying to define everything. It's like, oh, I want to define the eyebrow, I want to define the eyelid and then the iris and all that, when a lot of times it's good to conjoin shapes. I talk about that a lot in landscape paints, but the same goes for portrait paintings. And just being able to like connect all of this into just one big simple shape. And then here I break it down even more, maybe add like a darker shape there, darker for the eyebrow, darker for the eye. And then by here I've added in even more shapes. And also getting those shapes in right and putting them in and then adjusting them. I didn't get them right off the bat. And again, what I was saying about connecting shapes, look at the mouth here in this top lip, and you can see just how simple this was painted. And just getting the right value in the right shape and the right placement is what's really going to make that work. I mean, coming here to the final one, I mean, look at this eye. Like there's not much to it, but it's reading because it's the right shapes in the right place. The form of the mouth, you got this darker shape, lighter shape, then even darker shape, constructing the form of that mouth. I mean, just look at this area right here, how it started with just that dark mass. But by here, got a value shape here, got another stroke there, got this. Just all these shapes come together to make the form. And another thing that this is going to help you with is seeing value relationships and dialing those in right. It's easy to see the difference between very obvious value shifts, which I feel like a lot of beginners, they'll get like this value right, this really dark, and then they'll get this really light, and there'll be this like harsh line right there. But they won't find the subtle shifts that are happening and being able to tell like, okay, this is lighter than this, but just by a little bit. And then this gets just a little more dark. And then, but this is lighter than all of them. And this is even lighter. And just being able to move throughout the portrait and dial those in and constantly be stepping back and saying, okay, the shape that I'm working on, what is it relative to this lighter shape? All right, what is it relative to this darker shape? And really pushing and pulling it. If you watch the video tutorial of this painting, you'll see how much I'm adjusting and how much I'll lay down a value shape and then keep working the painting, then come back and then adjust it and make it lighter or darker. Again, if you want to check out this tutorial, it's on my Patreon page, which there's a link to in the description of this video. If you have any questions about this exercise, portrait painting, and oil painting in general, please leave those questions in the comments section. I love seeing them. I'm Chris Fornatero, here telling you to go get painting.